Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Can the Timberwolves beat the Nuggets? Yes, yes, yes. We'll tell you why coming up next on the Minnesota Basketball Party.
This is Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Timberwolves talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Basketball Party on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? Happy Wednesday. It's Wolves Talk every Wednesday here on the Minnesota Basketball Party, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Thanks so much for watching us live and joining in on the chat. Leave some questions for us. We'll get to them later. We are live on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Please subscribe. You can also watch us on demand on the YouTube channel or catch us on the Locked On Wolves podcast feed, where Ben Beacon produces fantastic daily Wolves shows with in-depth analysis. We've got a great show planned for you today, talking about the Wolves sweeping the Suns straight out of Phoenix. Now a matchup with the Nuggets looms. Anthony Edwards' star is shining, and Chris Finch might be going under the knife as we speak as he goes to get surgery on his torn patella tendon. Ugh. We'll get into all of that on today's show with a great panel. It's a show that is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. It's $150, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. Let's go around and meet our panel with this morning's opening tip.
I'm Jack Borman, co-host of the Locked On Wolves postcast with my man Luke Inman, and editor-in-chief at Canis Hoopus. And today I'll be talking about why we might be in store for the best series, not just in the Western Conference, but in the entire playoffs coming up with Wolves Nuggets.
And I'm Ron Johnson, former Gophers and NFL wide receiver, also avid basketball fan and player. And I'm going to talk about why winners just work out after series are over. You know, winners are going to work out. We're going to put that work in. But also I'm going to talk about why, as a parent, you guys know this, Chris Finch, the players like his team. Sometimes when the injury is going to happen, a parent's like, give it to me, not my child.
Is that an 8-pound weight, Ron? A 12? What are we?
It's a 20. It's a 20. Okay. We do real work over here. We're winners over here. We're doing real work. We're not doing that Devin Booker workout.
I'm Reggie Wilson, sports director at Care 11, and I learned something. I learned something about Ant. He might be a little bit more in common with all of us than we think.
And we'll get into why I believe the Timberwolves can beat the Nuggets as well on today's show. Again, I'm Sam Ekstrom. That's Jack Borman, Ron Johnson, Reggie Wilson, talking Wolves. And let's go back in time to Sunday, where the Wolves sweep the Suns, a 122-116 win in Game 4, a scintillating Anthony Edwards performance in the one really competitive game in the series. The Wolves whitewashed the Suns in the first three. In Game 4, it goes down to the wire. Ant scores 40. And when he put up the 4-0 at the end of that game, I didn't know if he meant 4-0 sweep or 4-0 I just scored 40 on y'all. But Jack Borman, take us back to Sunday. What are the lingering moments that'll stay with you going forward?
Yeah, for me, no question. It's Ant. No doubt about it. I mean, he had 31 in the second half, 16 in the fourth quarter. This is Anthony Edwards in the two fourth quarters on the road in Game 3 and Game 4. Game 3 had 18 points, 5 of 7 shooting, 8 of 8 from the free throw line, an assist and a turnover. And then in Game 4, in the closeout game, had 16 points on 6 of 7 shooting, 2 of 2 free throw, 1 assist, 0 turnovers, and 2 blocks. I mean, for any player, that's probably a pretty darn good, whole entire game line. But for him to do that on the road in huge spots just in the fourth quarter alone is pretty crazy. And I think in previous years in the playoffs, and even at other times earlier this season, it really felt like the Wolves weren't in control of what was going on late in games and in the fourth quarter. It kind of felt like it was up to the other team of whether the other team would be able to score against the Timberwolves defense. And if the Wolves got enough stops, then they'd win. But on offense, you just kind of had no idea what you were going to get. And it really feels like we've turned a corner in that regard. And that I think what felt so different about this playoff series in particular was it felt like Anthony Edwards was so in control of what was going on in the fourth quarter in both Game 3 and Game 4. In Game 3, when they were loading up on him, he was making all these right passes and then getting the ball back and then just creating off the catch and getting into the paint and drawing fouls. And then in Game 4, it was just I'm going to put my whole entire scoring arsenal on display. I can do it in the mid-range. I can get all the way to the rim. I can dunk on Kevin Durant. I can make tough threes. I can make a step-in three from 33 feet away or whatever it was from straight on. I mean, he just did absolutely everything that this team needed. And then, blocked Devin Booker at the rim to prevent him from getting 50 points when he and Karl Anthony Towns were at the podium post game talking about, oh, he tried it. That's unquestionably what they were referring to when Ant blocked him and then talked a whole bunch of trash. And Jaden called him a very unfriendly word on his way out of the arena. It was just, I think the way that this team has kind of taken, taken Ant's personality and let that become the entire team's personality, I think has been just an overwhelmingly positive thing and a true inflection point that really makes it feel like where we're going now with the Timberwolves is a place that we've never gone. And that's a place of super sustainable success because they've got a guy that outside of Victor Wembanyama, I don't know that there's any player in the league that you can say with a bullet that you'd rather have on your team moving forward.
Yeah, he's the furthest thing from a one-trick pony. Like, if you look at all four of these games, game 1, he beat him with the mid-range. Game 2, he beat him with facilitation and defense. Game 3, he got to the rim. And game 4, he beat him from beyond the arc. Like, it was something different in every single game where Ant was making his presence felt. Ron, coming off the sweep, what's sticking with you about Ant and the rest of that performance?
Well, first off, I'll say the 4-0 is the 40 points. We know that because when he did the 50, he did the same thing. The 5th, when he was on the sideline. So we know Anthony Edwards wouldn't be braggish about a 4-0 sweep because everybody knows they were swept. But not a lot of people paid attention to the stat line, which we know Anthony Edwards, he's not a millennium. I don't even know what these kids are nowadays. But he's one of these young zennials. I don't even know, Generation X. And they keep track of stats. They also keep receipts. And Anthony Edwards' receipt goes way back to last year when the Suns won and they were working out in the hallway and they were sitting back talking about winners win. And then Anthony Edwards, then fast forward, posted a video laughing at them because they got a 40-piece put on them. I think it was like 36 points in the third quarter, and he was laughing at them on his Instagram. He kept those receipts. He worked out all offseason. And I don't think the Timberwolves purposely tried to be funny about it. I think players do just work out after games sometimes just to get the soreness and stiffness out. But Timberwolves social media and Twitter all made sure nobody forgot that Anthony Edwards remembers Devin Booker talking about winners win, baby. Winners put that work in. And Anthony Edwards made us a believer. But when you look at the overall series, man, what sticks with me is that Anthony Edwards, he has really made this league understand who he is. Like, he didn't have to say it. A lot of people said it for him. That's when you know. Like, he doesn't have to go put a crown on his head. People are already giving it to him. And so that's the big difference in him versus a lot of players on the floor at that moment. Kevin Durant, like he went up and could have, like that dunk he blocked. I don't know if it was, I forgot who it was. I don't know if it was Bill or Devin Booker who was going to dunk it, but he came up last minute from the side and blocked it. That's the difference in him and Kevin Durant right now. Kevin Durant saw Anthony Edwards coming. Playoff fouls. I wouldn't have been mad if Kevin Durant took Anthony Edwards like out the air, not trying to hurt him, but like, you're not just dunking on me. He moved out the way, business decision, let Anthony Edwards get a dunk. That's the difference. And Anthony Edwards really showed everybody, I'm here for this moment. And now it's time for him and Jamal Murray to take the stage.
Reg.
Yeah.
Oh, you're muted.
I know that Ant is pretty much the topic of conversation, but can we just give a shout out to the Timberwolves defense? That whole sequence that led to that Ant dunk in the fourth quarter was ridiculous. And that was how much they were on them the whole series. I made a joke like, if Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, KD, whoever was going to the water cooler to get some Gatorade, like they turned around and they had a Timberwolves player in their face. Like that was how much they were on them that whole series. It was blistering. Like they blitzed them. Like it was crazy. And this is what was crazy to me, what stuck out to me. I think we said, or I said, I won't speak for everybody, but I thought that the Suns would at least get one at home, and maybe the Wolves close it out back at home in Game 5. but they gave the Wolves their best punch. 82 combined from KD and Book in game 4, and it still wasn't enough because Cat scored 28, Ant scored 40, and paying off the tees, as Ron would say. One thing that I thought was interesting was the duo presser after the game with Ant and Cat. By the way, couldn't have been any more of a contrast in clothing than we saw from Cat, and Ant just had on the tank, the beater, as some in our culture would say, and the sweats and little ball cap, and that was it. And then Cat's a little bit more flashy. He had it on, as he usually does. And it was crazy because like it seemed like Ant, he was so laid back and just chill. And it just seems like he has kind of overtaken everyone as just kind of like that leader on the team, where he almost seemed like Big Brother in that moment with how he was talking to Cat. He was just like, hey, stop fouling. A little bit more colorful language than that, but and I think that was one thing that made Ant so much more relatable to all of us who watch the Wolves, because we see it with Cat. We see it, some of the mindless fouls that he commits. And, he complains about foul calls all the time. I think some of that has rubbed off on Ant. I've never seen Ant complain about fouls as much as I've seen him this particular season. But he sees it. He's like, Cat, stop fouling. What are we always saying on X? Like every Timberwolves game, Cat in foul trouble, 3 fouls in the first quarter. He's sitting for most of the first half because he's in foul trouble. Ant was like us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, stop fouling. Cat, stop all the fouling. Cat's like, look, man, I could try. I think Cat doesn't even know how to help it at this point. But Ant understands, like, Cat is a very important piece to the team. And the best ability is availability. And if he's not out there on the court, then he can't help them in the way. And you saw it. I mean, Ant basically said Cat was the difference in that game, and them being able to win that game, because Cat came out, I think he scored 8 points in that third quarter, and they were 8 big points in that third, because it seemed like the Suns could have tried to take off, but he kind of helped pace them and keep them, in range. And then Ant was able to do what he did in the fourth quarter and put the game away. And so Ant sees just like we see. He's like us.
I loved Cat's performance, by the way. I thought that, and Cat hasn't gotten nearly enough credit because of how good Ant was, but 11 of 17, 4 of 6 from 3, 10 rebounds, 3 assists. It was a masterful performance. It wasn't Batman and Robin. It was like Batman and Superman. They were both so good in that game. So give Cat his flowers. And who else, who else I want to give flowers to? Jack Borman. Golf clap for you. You predicted the sweep. You called it. You called it last week. And none of us had the guts to go there, and you did. So take a victory lap, just a little victory speech. You saw this sweep coming. You believed that the Suns were done after 2 games, and you were right.
Yeah, I thought the Suns were done after the first quarter of game 2. I tweeted from Canis that it was going to be Wolves in 4. I mean, I'm sure Ron felt this way going against those bums in the Big Ten. That you can just tell when a defender or when an opponent just doesn't have the same dog in you that you do, and doesn't want to fight the same way that you do. And you could just tell. It just felt like, I saw a tweet that perfectly encapsulated this, that it felt like the Suns were watching the Wolves make every 50-50 play, come up with every 50-50 ball, make every extra effort. And we're just like, cool, bro. That's cool. We'll keep doing what we do. You guys can do all the little things. And it just totally added up. And, it felt like the Wolves made the Suns tap out in just about every single game before the fourth quarter even started, with the exception of game 4. And it's hard to overcome that. The Timberwolves, didn't have the best, the big 3 of the Suns, everyone thought was better, but all the other players, like, it was so evident that the Timberwolves had the better team. And when you are the team that is less connected, or excuse me, when you're the team that's less talented 1 through 8 or however many people you're playing, you cannot also be the team that is less connected. And the Suns were unquestionably the team that was less connected. And that is ultimately, why I just didn't think that they were going to win a game. And it felt like the Wolves just kept that same intensity and their foot on the gas for, all 48 minutes of every game. And a lot of that has to go, the credit has to go to Chris Finch too, for the way that he had all these guys prepared with their week off. And, all the best to Chris Finch. I know that, we'll talk about it here in a little bit, but man, just what a bummer way to end it. But
yeah,
Sam,
major bummer. Yeah.
Sam, to Jack's point, I remember before the series started, Mike Conley was like, can we just please take this serious, guys? I don't know how many more of these I have left. So like, can y'all just please be adults for this series? Like, I want to win. And they took that to heart. I think there was a lot of pessimism, especially with how the season ended and, them dropping to 3 seed. And just it seemed like they ended the regular season with no momentum against this team that had swept them in the regular season. People were just like, how does that happen? I don't see a path forward. And then they come out, they're serious. Like I said, they're on them from the time they ran out of the locker room. I think Anthony Edwards was right next to Devin Booker. Like as soon as he opened the door to walk out of the locker room, I think that was how they were doing it. But that they literally flipped the switch, and that makes this team very dangerous moving forward.
Yeah, it almost felt like they literally put the Suns out of their misery. Like the Suns' body language has been knocked by the pundits all year long. And in the post-game comments after Game 4, watching Durant and Beal, they almost seemed relieved. They almost seemed relieved to be done. Not nearly the same type of devastation I think you would expect from a team that had that high of expectations. And the Wolves just said, all right, well, we won't make you suffer a flight back to Minnesota. You can stay here. We'll just put you down right now.
And Shams had that article ready to go that dropped 15 minutes after the buzzer. And I also have to do one other thing. I have to give credit to Bradley Beal. For him to say, I've never been swept in my life. I'll be damned if that
was
happens.
hilarious.
And him to open his exit interview the next day after Game 4 by saying, I'll be damned, was one of the funniest things. And I think Wolves fans kind of thought that Bradley Beal was soft. And I don't think that was necessarily wrong based on his play. But they definitely didn't hate him the same way they hated Devin Booker. And things like that are exactly why, I think, just because that was one of my favorite parts of the whole series, if I'm being honest.
I don't think Beal was fully healthy. He was kind of laboring out there. I don't know that he was all the way 100%. All the missed dunks we saw from him, and it was bizarre.
I respect you riding for the 314, Reg. I respect it.
You think he's cooked?
No, I'm just saying you got to protect your guy.
Yeah. He's one of the best hoopers to come out of the loo. So shout out.
Let's get a pause in, and then we'll get to Series X Factors not named Anthony Edwards. I think there are 3 or 4 correct answers for this one. That'll be next on the Minnesota Basketball Party. We are presented by DoorDash. Yes, Mother's Day is coming up. Moms are a gift, so give her the best this Mother's Day. Get gifts as thoughtful as she is with DoorDash. Select from hundreds of expertly crafted bouquets to the best of tech to self-care essentials and more delivered right to her door. Does she have a sweet tooth? Is she a beauty connoisseur? Is she outdoorsy? You can get literally anything, any industry delivered to mom for Mother's Day. Get her a bookstore gift card. Get her a good latte. Get all your Mother's Day gifts all in one place and get 50% off your next order. Up to $15 when you spend $15 plus on your next flour, convenience, grocery, or retail order now with code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA. You order using DoorDash today. Terms do apply. We are also presented by FanDuel. Nuggets are favored in this upcoming series. That's okay. Suns were favored too. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL. FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Check out all the series odds, the series scenarios for Wolves Nuggets. You could bet on a Wolves sweep again if you wanted to. You could bet on Wolves in 7. Make your bet count. Make that first bet count. Winning $5 bet gets you $150 for free. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, let's kick it to Ron Johnson for the following question. Who was your biggest X factor in this series, not named Anthony Edwards for the Wolves? You could go up and down the roster. There's a lot of good options here. Who you taking?
I'm going Mike Conley. I said this way back when Mike Conley wasn't in and Cat was trying to go for 1,000 points. Mike Conley is a calm voice that sometimes calms the game down. And the fact that I heard Mike Conley's name come up with 3 different teams this morning on national radio, 3 different teams. The Lakers, they said they could have used Mike Conley instead of D'Angelo Russell, and they could have gotten him, but they went D'Angelo Russell. Mike Conley ends up a Timberwolf. They said the Suns could have used Mike Conley because Frank Vogel did not want all 3 scorers in Beal, KD, and Booker, that he wanted a PG. They said, nope, we're going to give you 1,000 points, but nobody to pass it to those guys when matters moment most. Devin Booker, quote unquote, is the point guard. It doesn't work that way. They said, look at, the Clippers. They could use a point guard. When you think about Harden, PG, and Kawhi, they could use somebody to facilitate the ball better on their team. So the fact that everybody's talking about it, and then they said like the Lakers, sorry, Reggie, they said the Lakers are on their way down or plateauing. They said the Timberwolves are on their way up. They said OKC is on their way up, and the Nuggets are, basically they're champs. And so that's where I see it. Like the Bucks, that was the reason why they went and got Damian Lillard. They felt like they needed a better point guard who can also score. Mike Conley, in my opinion, he is the difference maker in this series. He's been the difference maker all season, and he's been that calm guy to really facilitate the ball but not make dumb decisions. And he can knock down threes if you leave him wide open. So I got to give it to him.
All right, Reg.
I go Jaden McDaniels. I think, moving forward, they need to have a consistent performance. Like at his best, he's a legitimate 3-and-D guy. And if he can consistently make several threes in a game, like I think that he is all the difference. You know what happened last year, unfortunately, in that series against the Nuggets. And as I said earlier, the best ability is availability, and him being out there is going to be even different this year as compared to last year. Ant had a great playoff series last year, but the Nuggets were downhill. They were all downhill. And I think if they play this type of blistering defense led by Rudy Gobert and Jaden McDaniels on the defensive end, I just think that that's going to be like, how many times did we see poor Lakers? Oh, they made me so mad the other night. But Jamal Murray, just the most basketball of basketball moves, getting himself free for a shot. And like, they're unreal shots. Okay. So I give him that great shot making ability, but he had AD in a blender making that shot to win game 2. And then the shot in the last game was just ridiculous. But I think the Wolves are probably in better position to guard some of these crazy shots from Jamal Murray moving forward in this series. So I think Jaden McDaniels makes a heck of a difference moving forward, but I also think, if he could parlay the last series into a good series, next series, like this Wolves team is dangerous.
Yeah, McDaniels wasn't a scorer in every game of the sweep, but 2 of the 4, he was above his average. And his stat line over the 4 games, that's really what you want. Averaged 14 and 5 and shot 50%. If he can duplicate that in the Nuggets series, a lot of good things are going to happen. Jack, you can take this one of 2 ways. Give me either your X factor for the Sun series or your X factor looking forward in the Nuggets series.
Yeah, first I want to shout out Ron. I think that's a great point about Mike Conley. I think it's also really unfortunate just about national media in that, like, I feel like the only way people are talking about Wolves players is like, man, some big market team could really use this guy on the Wolves.
I'm not gonna lie, that's what it felt like this morning. The entire ride, drove my kids off at school, Jack. I'm not gonna lie, it was they did not give the Timberwolves any credit. It was they could use players elsewhere. Or there was one, and we maybe talk about this later at the end if we have time, but they said, could KD end up one asked to come to the Timberwolves? So
could you imagine hearing that a year ago? Like, it's just insane. But got to give Ron his flowers. He's been on the Mike Conley bandwagon all year. But for me, I also had Jaden McDaniels in this previous series. You nailed it, Sam, just in that he raised his averages this season. He averaged like 3 rebounds a game, up to 5, from 10 points up to 14 points. And what was most impressive to me, I think, is that he averaged 14 points, shooting only 27% from 3. He found more ways to put the ball in the hole. He averaged 4 free throws a game. He averaged just 1.2 in the regular season. So for him to really grow his offense in a more confident way, I think the corner crashing on the offensive glass, he got in there and got a bunch of offensive rebounds. That was how the Timberwolves scored their very first points in this series, was Jaden McDaniels' corner crashing from Karl Anthony Towns straight on 3. And that just set a great tone, I thought, for the rest of the series. And it's just another way for him to get involved and be impactful offensively without touching the ball. And then defensively, he held Devin Booker to 18 points on 4 of 12 shooting, according to NBA matchup stats for this whole entire series. Bradley Beal scored only 2 points against him on 1 of 5 shooting the whole series. And then KD scored 21 points on 9 of 13 shooting. But, I mean, when you're watching those games, you're not sitting there thinking, wow, KD cooked Jaden McDaniels. It's just like, wow, KD is making all these crazy tough shots. And Reg nailed it in that, I think Jamal Murray is a guy that, like Devin Booker, is someone that struggles with length because he's so used to being able to get to his spots in the mid-range and rising up over smaller guards and hitting these crazy tough shots. And I think Jaden moves a lot better than what you saw Anthony Davis do. I'm so sorry, Reggie, at the end of game 2, was it? When they hit that buzz, like, I just don't think Jaden McDaniels is going to get beat on a step back in the same way. And so you can make an argument that Jaden is also the X factor moving forward in this next series, because he's probably going to be guarded by Michael Porter Jr., another guy that's not exactly flight of feet defensively. And Jaden's going to be able to put the ball on the deck. And if they bring 2 to Ant, or they load up on Ant in a similar way that the Suns did, he's going to have to be able to score the ball to force the Nuggets to play back single coverage on Ant. And then we've all seen what happens when that happens with Ant in single coverage. So I think Jaden really finding his stride and finding his confidence offensively. Like, if you had told me 2 months ago Jaden McDaniels would be a way better offensive player in the first round series than we saw at any point this whole season, I probably would have said you were crazy. But you got to give him all the credit in the world for what he's been able to do.
I did want to say, though, you said Jaden McDaniels or Michael Porter Jr. I don't know if everybody's up on it, but it feels a little bit like Kendrick Lamar versus Drake. So I'm ready for this.
Who's who? Who's who in that case, Ron?
Oh, come on now. Light skin and light skin. Michael Porter Jr. is Drake, and Kendrick Lamar is bodying Drake right now, and that's what Jaden McDaniels is about to do. He's about to really set the tone. Like, I don't really like you. I don't like how you walk. I don't like how you brush your hair. I don't like the chemicals you put in your hair. It's not natural berries and juices. Like, he's just about to really just get into him. I'm looking forward to this. And we know Jokic just wants to go to his horses anyway.
And MPJ is a killer out there, man. It seems like when he makes shots, it's like at back-breaking moments of the game.
Yeah.
It's just like, good Lord. Like,
yeah.
And the way he just rises up and just takes the shot out of nowhere. And it's back-breaking. Like, I'm supposed to like the guy because we went to the same school, but that dude, man, he's a killer out there. I especially hated him against the Lakers.
Yeah, he's the guy you worry about on an offensive rebound. Jokic gets the offensive rebound, kicks it out, your defense is scrambled, and MPJ just jumps so high when he shoots his shots. He just explodes upward. He's like unblockable, and usually hits it.
Definitely, eye test tells me that he's shooting 100% on threes off of offensive rebounds.
Man, it just feels like it, right? And to your point, Sam, a dude with like 4 or 5 different back surgeries, that just makes no sense that he has the type of jumping ability on these shots that he does on a consistent basis. But it's like sometimes it's quiet, other times it's a little bit more pronounced, but you'll look up and MPJ has like 25 points. So you're just like, good Lord. Like, it just, what you get from Murray and then what you get from Jokic. And then, like, if MPJ or KCP just happen to have a strong performance as well, that just makes that Nuggets team feel just unbeatable.
Yeah, that's where you need the bench contributions for the Wolves. That's where, and Nas didn't have a great series. You need some big Nas games, but you got a lot from Nickeil Alexander-Walker. That's like having, when Jaden and Nickeil are engaged the way they were. I mean, if you combine them sort of as a hybrid, they averaged collectively 27 points a game in that series. And Nickeil gave you 4 assists a game too. Nickeil was awesome, and they both defend insanely well. So that's how the Wolves can counteract, I think, some of that scoring. And you assume that Denver is going to get hot in one game where Murray and Porter just don't miss, and you're going to need to keep up with them somehow offensively. But I do want to shift things to the Chris Finch conversation, because I think today he's going into surgery. It looks like he might not be there for game one. We don't know for sure yet how they're going to set him up. He's going to have to recover from surgery. Is he going to be on painkillers? We don't know how that's going to look on Saturday. But Reggie, how do you think the Chris Finch injury will play into this series? Does it concern you at all that the man pulling the strings might not be there or might be in a secondary role?
Yes, it's very concerning. And I haven't been here for very long, but it just felt so Minnesota for that to happen. Like, come on, man. Like, you're thankful that it didn't happen to Cat or Ant or Rudy or
Mike Conley in that moment.
or any of the stars. But like, goodness gracious, like you sweep the Suns and everybody's just like, yeah. But your coach tears his patella tendon. Everybody's just like, dang. Like, that is like the bummer of the playoffs that happened. And Chris Finch has been maligned at times. Like, I still go back to a couple years ago where he didn't call the timeout when Memphis was making that run. And I think it's so unfortunate that happened to him, because I feel like he is kind of coming into his own as well as a coach and as a head coach, I should say, and really pulling the right strings. And him not being out there in a series against the defending champs, like, you need your best when the best is required. And it's tough if he's not able to give it a go out there for game one. That could be a really tough challenge for them game one, a chance for them to kind of come out and make a quick statement against the defending champions. And so I think that's so tough that he's dealing with this right now. And if he's able to be out there, I don't know how, they finagle it. Is he on a scooter? Is he because the leg has to be kind of placed in a specific position. Yeah. So I just don't know how that works. Like, is he up in the rafters, just like chilling, and Nori just has like a earpiece in, and he's just like, hey, tell Ant to play more defense. Tell him line up. Like, I don't know how that works. And so I think, and then also, Ant gives a lot of his maturation and a lot of the game that he has developed, especially in the postseason, to Chris Finch pushing him. And I know Finch is still going to challenge him, but I don't know what he says to Ant during games and things that he does to kind of unlock another level of Ant, and him not being in there or him not being able to facilitate that. It's just going to be a little tough.
Yeah, I do think there are some positive vibes that could be gleaned from this, not to use Chris Finch's injury as like something good, but I think that that's something the team could rally around. I think that Mike and Nori is someone they could rally around. And if he's on a scooter, like, that's just good energy right there. If Chris Finch is on a scooter, that's kind of hilarious and viral, and I kind of love it, even though he's probably in some pain. Jack, is there anything tactically you worry about with the switch from Finch to Nori?
Well, first of all, Mike and Nori can absolutely hold his own. I mean, you saw the ATO that he drew up with a minute left to give, or less than a minute left to give Ant that runway dunk was incredible. All these players respect Mike and Nori infinitely. And Chris Finch has said multiple times he thinks Mike and Nori should be a head coach in this league. So I don't think you worry all that much about, Micah specifically, but I do think the Chris Finch injury does affect the team 100%, because it disrupts the normal rhythm and routine of what happens on game day, not only for players, but for coaches. And it's happening at a time where, I mean, Ron, you've played in a million big games. Like you need to lean into that routine more so than ever when you've got all the different nerves flowing through you, and you're worrying about the stakes and you're worrying about all these things. It's just really unfortunate timing. And I think, so many different guys have spoken since the playoffs started, specifically Ant, Jaden, and Carl, about things Chris Finch has come and really harped on them for, in the week leading up to the playoffs that really helped them find success in round one. And Chris Finch is undergoing surgery today. Like, I don't know how many people watching have undergone surgery of any kind, but like, you feel gross for multiple days, up to probably a week, once all the drugs kind of move through your system. And then you throw in the altitude of being in Denver, how difficult it's going to be to get him set up on a plane, even if it's a private plane. I mean, that's still a lot to ask. So yeah, it's just super unfortunate because it seems like his leg is going to be locked in place horizontally. So I don't think there's really any chance of him being able to be on a scooter. I don't think you want to risk him further injuring that leg after a surgery. So yeah, I just think it's super unfortunate because Chris Finch deserves so much credit for where this thing has gone. And if the Timberwolves continue to win, I just worry that, people won't give him his due. But yeah, I mean, it also is tough too, because he's out today and tomorrow, presumably, bedridden and probably drugged up and not going to be totally there. Like, if you're other assistants, that's got to be a weird feeling, knowing that today and tomorrow are your two biggest prep days. Yes, yesterday, today, and tomorrow are your three biggest prep days. And Chris Finch, the head coach, is out for two of them. And he's done a great job of empowering assistants all year long. But that's just got to be a weird feeling, knowing that, you can't necessarily just have him there to be like, hey, does this make sense to you? Or kind of, have someone as a final set of eyes on things. So yeah, man, yeah. All the best to Chris Finch, and just a crazy injury. I can't remember ever seeing something like this happen in the NBA.
No, me neither. Ron, any coach or personnel injuries in your football career that you can recall?
Ooh, no. I mean, I know there was a time where like Glenn Mason, I forgot what happened, but like I know one of his assistants had to take over. So I have been a part of that, where a coach is just out for like personal reasons or whatever. An assistant coach is going to take over. We've seen that happen before. It's not unheard of for an assistant. I mean, look at Harbaugh in Michigan. Harbaugh was suspended. I mean, he wasn't hurt, but he was gone. He couldn't be around the team. Sherrone Moore takes over as head coach of Michigan. They still are national champions. He coached 3 big games with Penn State, Ohio State, and I forgot the other one. So at the end of the day, like, these other coaches are around Chris Finch every day. They know exactly what he wants to get out this team. And basketball is one of the few sports. The biggest thing a head coach can do is get the feel of the game. Like, when is it a good time to use a timeout? When is it a good time to challenge? Well, the challenges are coming from the assistant sitting behind him anyway with the TV screen. So they're still there. It's up to him now to make that decision. Is he, like, he won't be bullied the way, like, a head coach sometimes won't be bullied, other than Darvin Ham. But a head coach, it's usually tougher for a head coach to be bullied, and assistants might listen to the players a little bit more. That's the only thing I could see being a little bit different, is maybe the players have a little bit more say-so to an assistant coach than they would for a head coach. But at the end of the day, he knows exactly what Chris Finch wants. I've had surgery. I've been fine like 2 days later. I've had hand surgery. I've had multiple knee surgeries, and I've come back, days later. Hands, I came back and played in the game later. My back, I got on a flight and flew out like 2 days later. My knee, same thing. I was out for a little bit, but I was back working out in the facility. So sometimes it's just a mindset too. But the one thing I will say is going to be a big deal is him getting on a jet, going to where he's going to go, and then figuring out where he's going to sit. Because I think he needs to be on the bench or near the bench, but I don't know if they need to put him like at the corner backside of the bench. But he has to be in a place where he can be protected by players if somebody comes barreling at him again.
Yeah.
Because that would be extremely Minnesota for him to get hurt again, like have surgery. And they're like, oh, yep, you just ripped all the stitches and we got to take you back and you got to redo this thing again because you didn't listen to us. So
this is a great job for like Luka Garza on the bench, just to be the bouncer.
Yeah.
Like,
just stand there and tackle everybody.
Yes.
Tackle anybody that comes near him. Keep Jokic's brothers away from him because we know they're dirty. So you gotta keep him protected at all costs. And I could say he could sit third row, maybe even, like, because I know there's like 3 rows of like assistants and there's another row. he could sit back there, but like find a place where he can be protected. And yeah, Luka Garza, you be the bouncer for Coach Chris Finch. But today's technology and being able to have a coach sit next to him too to say, hey, what do you want to say? All right, coach said do this. Like it's real simple, but I definitely think he needs to be there in the hotel, on the road, on the plane. I mean, they got a PJ. He'll be fine.
We're going to tell you the key matchups for Wolves Nuggets and predict the series next on the Minnesota Basketball Party. And we're brought to you by Monopoly Go. I know you're saying, whistle. I can't really whistle very well. You're saying personal foul. You've told us about Monopoly Go. We get it. But I'm here to say that Monopoly Go is so compelling and so much fun, and they have so many features that I have to tell you about all this good stuff in the game where you can team up with friends for time tournaments, work together, and build each other's Monopoly boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. So, I mean, Monopoly's cool because you can work together with your buddies, but also you can talk a bunch of trash to your buddies if you're playing that type of game where you're on top of the leaderboard, you're the top tycoon. And you can get hilarious emojis for taunting your friends when you smash their buildings and heist their vaults. So you got a good kind of duality going there with Monopoly Go, which feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. That's worth the price of admission right there. There's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. So there's always something fun to discover at Monopoly Go. Get off the bench. Go download it now for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. All right, speed round. Jack Borman, number one matchup to watch, Wolves Nuggets starting Saturday.
Yeah, this might be my favorite stat I've pulled all season. The biggest matchup for me is Karl Anthony Towns defensively against Nikola Jokic. Karl has played Nikola Jokic 6 times since the start of the 22-23 season. He's held the Joker to 48 points on 17 of 46 shooting. That is 37%. And has committed just 5 shooting fouls against Nikola Jokic in that time frame. So in that span of the players who have guarded the Joker for as many possessions as Cat has, 37% is the lowest field goal percentage any player in the NBA has allowed Nikola Jokic to shoot. The next lowest is Alperen Şengün of the Houston Rockets at 49.6%. So I think if Karl Anthony Towns is able to replicate his really strong defensive performance, I think a 6-game sample against one team is a pretty solid sample to see. If he's able to replicate that, I think that'll be really important for the Wolves, especially if he can stay out of foul trouble. That'll be huge because all the other players on the Wolves, including Rudy Gobert, have kind of struggled playing Nikola Jokic straight up in that coverage. So that's the biggest thing for me to watch. If Karl can stay out of foul trouble, continue to play good defense against Jokic.
Ron.
Yeah, I mean, the matchup I want to see is Anthony Edwards and Jamal Murray. I mean, when you watch Jamal Murray, he dribbles around and around and around till he finds his spot. Him and Jokic run a perfect 2-man game. So I don't know who's going to be on Jokic the most. I'm guessing Nas maybe. But you got to be able to switch. And then Anthony Edwards, if he ends up on Jokic, he can't get in foul trouble, but he still got to be able to use that strength in those lower legs to frustrate him. Because I've noticed in the last couple of games watching the Nuggets, when you make Jokic frustrated, he actually forces it a little bit more. And you got to pick the right time to flop back and take that offensive foul. A lot of people stay standing up because they don't want to give up the easy layup, but he does give you like a third or fourth shove. So I want to see that game between Jokic and Nas or Jokic and Cat, and then, Jamal Murray and Anthony Edwards. Like I really want to see that though.
Reg.
Yeah, Ron just took mine. Jamal Murray, Anthony Edwards. I feel like that's must-see TV. Now, what's interesting is, Jamal Murray, he scored 30 in that game against the Lakers, the closeout game, and he had a bad calf. So I don't know, where he is with his calf meat, but he's got to get that calf meat together, and we'll see, what he ends up doing there. But I think that's going to be an interesting thing to keep an eye on, because I did see him hobbling a little bit late in that game against the Lakers as well, but he still gamed them at the end too. So Jamal Murray, incredible shot maker in the postseason. Anthony Edwards, incredible shot maker in the postseason. I want to see that head to head. And it's interesting you brought that up, Jack, about Cat and the Joker. God bless, because I think maybe Rudy might end up finding himself on Jokic as well at some point. Just try to do what you can and pray, because Jokic pretty much, whenever he's just determined to be who he wants to be, he could just do whatever to you.
Mine would be the Wolves bench against the Nuggets bench. The Nuggets bench was awful in the Lakers series, horrible. And we saw what the Wolves did to the Suns. When the Suns had to use their bench, the Wolves just ended those games. The Suns had no depth. And I don't know if the Nuggets have any depth. Not any good depth that's playing well right now. Their bench in 5 games, 1 second, Jack, when their bench went 22 of 71 shooting, 31% from the field, 12 points a game. I mean, the Wolves with Nikhil, and if they get a better Nas, and I even like Kyle Anderson too, getting a little, further away from that hit pointer with a lot of time off. I think the Wolves bench is a huge advantage. Jack, what were you going to say? I
was just going to say, to back up your point, I ran these numbers last night. The Nuggets bench players played 222 of a possible 1,200 minutes in round one. That's 18.5% of the total minute share. That is by far the lowest in the NBA. The next lowest was the Lakers at 23% flat. So Mike Malone just doesn't trust any of those guys.
It's super interesting. That's really good. Final minutes, quick prediction for the series. Jack Borman.
Yeah, I got Wolves in 6. Ant spoke after game 1 of this last series about the value of the week off leading into that series. He's got another week off to prepare this time around. We've seen him grow. He averaged 31.6 points per game on 48, 35, 85 splits against the Nuggets last season. He's an even better player this time around. I think that, combined with the depth element, I think gets the Wolves over the top.
Ron.
Oh, this is a tough one. I'm going to go Wolves in 7, though. I'm going to go Wolves in 7. I think the fact that they have to play so much in Denver to close it out, it's going to be tough. But I could say the Wolves in 7. If they can get 2 in Denver, I'm saying Wolves in 5. Like, I really think they could close it out in 5, but I'm going to say 7.
Reggie.
Yeah, I got Wolves in 7 as well. I think I've seen enough from this Wolves team to say that they can beat the Nuggets, but I think it's not going to be easy for them. I do think that is a good point about the time off, though, because having that time off, I mean, they exerted a lot of energy to beat the Suns in that 4-game sweep. And so if they're using that same type of energy in that high altitude as well, like, that's going to be very tough for them. So I think, they could get gassed at times. And so I take Wolves in 7. I think they'll have enough to try to get the defending champs.
I'm going to be totally outlier, polarizing. I'm going to say Wolves in 4. They're just not going to lose a game all playoffs. 16-0, baby. They're going all the way. Clean sweeps every round.
Do you take that FanDuel prop of Wolves to not lose a game the whole playoffs, like plus like 20,000 or whatever it was?
Is that out there? That's fantastic. I mean, the odds for them to sweep the Suns was like 23-1. I mean, that would have been a pretty big payday too.
No, I should have took that. Dang it.
Yeah.
I'll be in Iowa this weekend, by the way. So if anybody wants Wolves,
well, you can jump on it.
Wolves lines. I leave on Friday. I can't wait.
If they win them all, Sam, I contend that they should end the "What a Pro Wants" commercials, because that means they probably have to go through the Thunder.
The OKC.
Yeah.
Those are terrible commercials, by the way. I'm so sick of that song now.
Yeah. Yep. It's just the same ones over and over again. Wolves Talk every Wednesday, Minnesota Basketball Party. Thank you for joining us live, watching us on demand, listening to us on the Locked On Wolves podcast feed. Jack Borman, Canis Hoopus, postcasts with Luke Inman, Ron Johnson, host of The Ron Johnson Show, and Reggie Wilson, Care 11. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next week.